The last thing I expected that Tuesday morning was the kind of chaos that turns your whole idea of peaceful ranch life upside down. Picture this blood-curdling screams ricocheting through the canyon, my alpaca Bolt trotting back toward the barn with a shredded designer handbag swinging from his mouth like he just won Best in Show. I barely had time to set my coffee down before Spitfire, my backup guard alpaca, came barreling in behind him, his woolly coat smeared with streaks of mascara and what looked suspiciously like fake tan lotion. That's when Karen's voice hit the air so sharp it could have sliced through barbed wire. She was yelling about assault and threatening lawsuits while limping across the pasture in one flip-flop, cradling her Pomeranian like a grenade with a pulled pin. That's the moment I knew something had gone sideways, and whatever it was, it probably started with Karen. You know, I always figured if justice ever showed up on my property, it'd be wearing a badge. Turns out sometimes it comes dressed in wool and bad attitude. But the truth is, this whole mess didn't start with a scream. It started with a pair of scissors. 4 years back, I bought this slice of land for some breathing room and a life on my terms, just me, a few animals, and enough peace that I could finish a cup of coffee without someone laying on a horn. Land sits nestled between two hills, sky so wide you forget what a neighbor looks like. Most folks out here kept to themselves until 2 months ago when Karen and her husband Doug showed up. They rolled in with a yappy dog named Princess and an ego so big it could block a satellite signal. Their place looked like something out of a magazine, a mansion perched on the ridge with an American flag the size of a bed sheet, and grass trimmed so straight you'd think someone measured it with a laser. First time we met, she wasn't offering cookies. She was demanding I do something about the odor from my compost pile. Never mind, it was 50 yards away and downwind from her precious patio. I thought she'd settle in after a while, maybe even soften up with a few friendly nods at the mailbox. Nope. Karen didn't adjust. She advanced. Complaints about my rooster, complaints about my tractor, complaints about me hanging laundry instead of running a dryer like civilized people. She even stomped up to my barn one afternoon, hollering loud enough to spook the chickens. But the day everything turned was the Friday I spotted a suspiciously clean cut in my back fence. Coyotes don't use garden shears. Security footage made my jaw drop. There was Karen in yoga pants and a floppy hat strutting across my pasture like it was a mall. She snipped a doorway right in the fence, strutted through with her little dog dragging behind, and even had the nerve to wave at the camera. That night I patched the fence with a wood barricade, but I knew she'd be back. What she didn't know was that my alpacas weren't just lawn ornaments. Bolt and Spitfire are trained livestock guardians. They don't bite, but they're not exactly fans of strangers waltzing in uninvited. I trained them myself, sent voice commands, the whole works. Anyone they don't recognize gets intercepted, and if you run, they'll chase you down like you're a coyote with a chicken. Sure enough, next day here comes Karen. Today's costume, white tracksuit, giant sunglasses, Crocs bedazzled with plastic diamonds. She shoved past my barricade like she was walking into a spa. Bolt spotted her first ears twitching, letting out this low hum. Spitfire grunted, and both started moving in slow, deliberate, like a pair of deputies sizing up an outlaw. Karen didn't even notice them until they were 10 feet away. Princess barked, but Karen, in true fashion, just started yelling at Bolt like he was a naughty child. Big mistake. Bolt charged, not a sprint, just a "I'm not kidding" jog. Karen screamed, tripped over a patch of wildflowers, and face planted. Spitfire snatched her handbag and swung it around. Princess circled in a panic. Karen flailed, yelling about animal cruelty while she tried to crawl out backward through the hole she'd cut. I stood there with my coffee, dumbfounded, a little bit amused. Bolt dropped her bag in the mud. Spitfire strutted back like he just won Best in Show. Karen glared at me like I'd just committed a felony. I just raised my mug and nodded. By dinner, Karen had already unloaded her version on the neighborhood Facebook group. She was attacked by wild llamas. The comments roasted her. Someone pointed out they were alpacas. Another said, "Maybe don't cut people's fences, Karen." The memes practically wrote themselves. She deleted the post, but the screenshots lived on. That was just the beginning. Next morning, I'm fixing the fence when a county truck rolls up. Animal control clipboard, sunglasses, the works. He asks if this is the place with the feral llamas. I nearly snorted. I showed him my camera footage. He watched Karen slice the fence, stroll in, then get run off by Bolt and Spitfire. Eyebrows up, little grin. Turns out Karen had filed a formal complaint. That was the day's twist. The officer checked my paperwork, vaccines, registration, even microchips. Bolt and Spitfire are official 4H stars. The officer couldn't help but laugh at Spitfire's ID photo. This one's got attitude. He left, and by sunset I was watching Karen on her own porch getting lectured by a second animal control officer. Her Pomeranian wasn't registered, didn't have its rabies shot, and no paperwork in the county. Fines, mandatory evaluation, the irony couldn't have been sweeter. That night Karen paced her yard with a contractor blueprint tube in hand. They pointed, gestured, argued. I had a hunch. I emailed zoning, requested a heads up on any new development plans. Sure enough, 2 days later, there it was, Karen's community wellness project, a supposed historical easement for a walking trail right through my pasture. I sent in my deed, fencing records, and livestock certificates. County shot her down, but Karen had more tricks up her sleeve. One weekend, a pickup and 2 guys with tool belts showed up to pour a path foundation. I confronted them, explained they were trespassing. Bolt arrived, nostrils flaring and Spitfire in tow. The contractors realized too late they were ankle deep in alpaca dung. They bailed. Karen stormed down, shrieking about sabotage and threatening legal action. I just pointed at the camera and the no trespassing sign. She got weirder after that. One night I found a blinking red light, cheap surveillance camera duct taped to my irrigation pipe aimed at my pasture. She'd buried the cable into a shallow trench. I pulled it, set up my own projector, and for a week played a highlight reel of her trespassing, bolt-spitting Spitfire mugging her handbag. Locals dropped by with lawn chairs and popcorn. Karen finally realized, ripped her camera out, but by then her reputation was toast. Then, just as the dust started to settle, another truck pulled up at sunrise. Gravel delivery. 2 workers, Karen in a ranger outfit with a clipboard. She ordered them to lay gravel for her community trail across my land. I walked over, Bolt beside me. Workers froze when they saw him. Karen blustered about rights of way. I asked for her permit. She waved a printout in process, which means absolutely nothing. Bolt stepped forward, did what he does best. Left a fresh protest on the gravel pile. Workers packed up. Karen fumed. That afternoon I filed another complaint, this time attaching fresh footage. County replied next day Karen had never filed any valid permits. HOA chimed in. Turns out her house was just outside their jurisdiction, and she wasn't supposed to be speaking for them anyway. Even the HOA president, Earl, admitted she'd become a problem. But Karen didn't stop. A few nights later, I spotted another hidden camera, this time inside a fake rock near the fence. She was trying to catch my animals being aggressive. I took the camera, parked it in front of the chicken coop, and let Bolt sneeze on the lens for good measure. A day later, Karen showed up at my gate in an apron that read, "Let's bake a truce," holding a tray of cookies. I didn't eat them. Neither did my neighbor's dog, who sniffed and walked away. Turns out she'd bragged online about softening up my animals with CBD-laced treats. That's tampering and it's a crime, but I was already a step ahead. Updated the projector with more highlight reels, invited neighbors for Alpaca Defense Tactics Night. Sheriff came, laughed, ate popcorn. Karen called in a noise complaint. The deputy told her, "Ma'am, you did this to yourself." Final straw. Karen tried to weld my alpaca gate shut. I caught the whole thing on camera, her with a portable welder muttering and sweating, sparks flying. Weld barely held. Bolt pushed the gate open with his head next morning. I handed footage, cookies, and everything else to the sheriff. 2 days later, Karen was cited for trespass, vandalism, false reporting, animal tampering. The HOA called a vote. She was kicked off every committee, banned from anonymous reports. But Karen still wasn't finished. Soon I got a municipal complaint for unauthorized public events, her attempt to flag my barn movie nights as illegal gatherings. But months ago, anticipating just this kind of pettiness, I'd secured a special use permit for livestock training sessions. I sent the paperwork to the county and scheduled the next training night. More neighbors came. Even more memes spread online. Her last desperate move. The sign wore. She put up a "Beware of Vicious Animals" sign with a strobe and alarm. I answered with my own private property. Trespassers will be spit on, complete with a picture of Bolt mid-spit. Local business started printing T-shirts. Donations rolled in for animal rescue. At this point, the entire neighborhood had had enough. Earl, the HOA president, called for a final vote. I sent him a dossier, every complaint, video record since Karen moved in. By sundown, she was removed from every board, every committee. I threw a party, my friend Jack's wedding, in the pasture under the sycamore tree, bluegrass band, food truck, Bolt in a bow tie. Karen stomped out filming and ranting, but the sheriff was already there. "Have some cake or go home," he said. She turned, disappeared into her house. Within a week, news reporters showed up. Karen's fence-cutting alpaca revenge and community meltdown had gone viral. I agreed to an interview as long as they promoted animal rescue. Karen lost it, accused me of ruining her life, of weaponizing alpacas, of manipulating the media. I just opened the gate. Bolt and Spitfire stood by chewing. She froze, then ran home. The last domino fell quick. HOA banned her from everything. No lawyer would touch her. One morning, a moving truck loaded her stuff. No fanfare, just a quiet exit. Doug looked exhausted. Karen kept her head down. As they drove out, the truck clipped the fence, the one she'd cut so long ago. Bolt and Spitfire walked out heads high. Bolt leaving one last present on the gravel as Karen shrieked from the SUV. The truck sped off. Just like that, she was gone. Peace settled in for the first time in months. The pasture healed. Animals relaxed, neighbors swapped stories about the great Karen saga. Bolt and Spitfire got little plaques on the barn for service above Spit. Kids came by to learn about animals' boundaries and respect. And what did I learn? Sometimes you don't win by shouting, but by holding your ground, keeping receipts and letting the world see what happens when entitlement meets a wall of wool and karma. Karen came to this land thinking she could run it like a city street, but out here patience and community and alpacas run deeper than any fence. She cut through my boundaries and ended up tangled in her own. And now every time I look out at my field, I remember sometimes justice wears a fuzzy face and spits when it's called for. So here's my question for you. Where's the line between standing your ground and escalating the feud? Is there such a thing as too much karma, or does every Karen just have to learn the hard way? Drop your wildest neighbor stories below and let me know, what would you have done if you were in my boots?
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.